Hi, welcome to Jetline Training Type Rating A320 Handling of Abnormals video. Before we start, let's speak about disclaimer policy. Information provided in this video is for informational purposes only and is intended to be used only internally within Jetline Training organization. So it's not allowed to publish this video or any part of this video outside of Jetline Training organization. Purpose is to standardize procedures between instructors, and it shall never be used instead of some airline company published procedures. It's made according to latest revision in 2025, and for any future changes please refer to officially published documents. We'll use FCOM, QRH and FCTM. So to start with FCTM in Management of Abnormal Operation General Section, let's speak about sequence of procedure. The following sequence is the basic one that should be applied by the flight crew in case of any abnormal or emergency procedure. So first we do memory items or OAB immediate actions, then we will do the OABs, after that ECAM, and then the QRH. So if we do not have any memory items or OABs, we'll deal with the ECAM, and if we don't have the ECAM, then we go to QRH. Memory items, you can find a list of the memory items in FCOM under the chapter memory items, and you can see not much of them, only 10. And only 2 of them have additional procedures after initial actions of the memory items. These are the emergency descent and unreliable speed indication. In case of emergency descent after initial memory items, crew must refer to QRH, or they can refer in this case also to the ECAM. And in case of unreliable speed indication after initial memory items, crew must go to QRH. And important thing is to know how to call for the memory items. This can be also found in the FCOM in introduction chapter callouts. And here you can see, for example, for GPWS, you just simply call pull-up toga, for reactive wind shear toga, unreliable speed indication, unreliable speed, and etc. We spoke about this unreliable speed indication. So when the pilot flying calls for unreliable speed, pilot flying performs memory items, and pilot monitoring opens QRH, and these memory items are here in boxed, and then pilot monitoring checks that the memory items are performed correctly and continue reading, in this case to level off, and for the purpose of leveling off and troubleshooting. OABs. OABs are published in QRH. What are OABs? OABs are some procedures published by manufacturer Airbus that override ECAM, or they can be not ECAM related, and they need to be performed in case of some abnormality. So they can be related to ECAM or not related to ECAM. In this sample you can see that, for example, this NAV ADR 1+2+3 fault OAB is related to ECAM, and the rest are not related to ECAM. If you have black and white QRH, then you can see that the red OABs are in bold font and white OABs are in regular font. Red OABs are related to safety. So when do we check for the OABs? We check for the OABs during the preliminary cockpit preparation. As you can see here, CM1 and CM2, it is both pilot items, and they need to check for the OABs for that particular aircraft. Here we can see example of OABs. On this MSN, on this aircraft, we have two OABs. Both of them are red. One is related to ECAM, the other one is not related to ECAM. So this landing gear not downlogged, for example, if you have the ECAM landing gear not downlogged, you know that you have the OAB, so you are not performing the ECAM actions, you are performing the landing gear not downlogged OAB from the QRH. And then at the bottom you can see that the status on the ECAM is correct, so you just clear the ECAM and read the status from ECAM. ECAM actions. Task sharing rules. So we go to the FCTM to see how to handle ECAM, QRH and OAB, and what is very important, who is doing what. So in addition to the routine task fly and navigate performed by pilot flying, it is the responsibility of the pilot flying to perform all the following actions. So why it is important? Because of communication. So pilot flying initiates ECAM, QRH or OAB actions performed by pilot monitoring and needs to communicate after ECAM, QRH, OAB actions are initiated and until the pilot monitoring announce ECAM actions complete or some procedure complete in case of the QRH or OAB procedure. Stop ECAM does not change anything. In case you need to stop ECAM, for example in case of engine failure to accelerate the aircraft, communication is still with pilot flying. So communication is with pilot flying until ECAM actions complete or some procedure complete. In the FCTM you have a table which explains in detail how to handle ECAM and task sharing together with the calls between pilot flying and pilot monitoring. We will deal with this a little bit later in detail. To recap everything, management of abnormal operation, we can have advisory. We'll speak right now about advisory condition. We can have memory items or OAB immediate actions that need to be done immediately. ECAM or QRH procedures. Advisory. First pilot who notices an advisory, it will pulse this ADV together with the system display. We'll call advisory on, for example, APU or advisory on fuel. So pilot monitoring is analyzing system display. Pilot flying and pilot monitoring together are monitoring drifting parameters, and then they will refer to QRH if they have time to see about this advisory condition. So in a QRH you have a table ECAM advisory condition, and for example here in APU if you have low oil level pulsing, then you can read the recommended action that if there is no oil leak, remaining oil quantity allows normal APU operation for about 10 hours. ECAM actions. Whenever you have some ECAM, it can be with a single chime or without single chime. Any pilot can reset this master caution or master warning, and then pilot monitoring need to announce the title of the failure. For example here, air APU bleed fault. Why? Because of situational awareness. Pilot fly might be busy with flying, so to be aware that something is happening. Then pilot monitoring also need to confirm with system display or overhead panel, if it is possible. Some ECAM cautions cannot be confirmed. For example, autopilot flight director TCAS fault, you don't have any local light and it cannot be confirmed, so you just take it as granted. Then you need to consider the OAB. It's both pilot items. If you have OABs for this one, you will do the OABs. If not, pilot flying is ordering ECAM action. And now the task sharing for abnormal operations, so it means that the pilot flying is in charge of communication. Pilot monitoring is performing the ECAM, or in case of the OAB actions. And when all the items are done, pilot monitoring actually request clear name of the system. In this case, clear air. So not to say clear air APU bleed fault, just the underlined clear air. Pilot flying checks that all actions are done and confirms with clear air, and pilot monitoring press the clear push button. Actions to be confirmed by both pilots, really important. Pilot flying is in charge of thrust levels because it's a fly path, and pilot monitoring is in charge of the rest that need to be confirmed. So all guided controls, red or black, irrelevant. Engine master levers, air mode selectors or push buttons, and circuit breakers. So when ECAM says, for example, engine master 1 off, the pilot monitoring indicates the rated control and requests confirm. Pilot flying checks that this is the correct control and answers confirm, and then pilot monitoring performs the action. When some ECAM or OAB requests to perform some additional procedure, then you need to stop the ECAM actions, refer to the QRH, perform the procedure. Some QRH procedure will mention when to come back to ECAM. If not, when you come to the end, you continue with the ECAM. So it's explained in the FCTM handling of ECAM chapter. If an ECAM procedure requests the flight crew to apply a QRH procedure, the flight crew should keep the procedure displayed on the ECAM, apply the requested QRH procedure, and when the procedure is completed, come back to ECAM. This is one example in electrical emergency configuration. ECAM action, you have a procedure fuel gravity feed. This is an old ECAM standard. In a new standard, you will have fuel gravity feed dots apply. Irrelevant. So in this case, the pilot flying announced stop ECAM, pilot monitoring stops ECAM. Pilot flying requests gravity fuel feeding procedure. Pilot monitoring opens QRH, starts reading procedure, and when the procedure is completed, the pilot monitoring announced gravity fuel feeding procedure completed, and pilot flying announced continue ECAM, and pilot monitoring continues ECAM actions, in this case from FAC 1 of then on. Then we sometimes have secondary failures, and they will be displayed on the right side of the ECAM. You can have land ASOP red, land ASOP amber, or no, nothing. So if you have land ASOP red, you will announce land ASOP red or land ASOP amber, and then you analyze the secondary failures that will appear on a system displays if you have them. In this case, you analyze the flight control and you say, okay, we don't have two spoilers, blue hydraulic, clear flight controls, pilot flying confirms by clear flight controls, and then pilot monitoring press the clear push button. And we go like that all the way until we come to the status page. When the status page appears, pilot monitoring announce status. Pilot flying orders stop ECAM. So this is always the same. At status, stop ECAM. So stop the ECAM actions, and then you need to consider acceleration flow patterns if you miss something, if you maybe have some normal checklists at that point to do, or to do system or computer reset, or any additional procedure like, for example, engine relight in flight procedure. For system or computer reset, you go for the QRH in a system reset, and you check for the system if it is possible to reset this system. And in this case, for example, if you have flight control spoiler fault, you will see that in flight, well, it's not authorized. On ground, you can reset it. Or if you have engine failure, no damage, Now is the time to relight the engine. So at status, you will relight the engine. So the pilot flying will order engine relight in flight procedure. Pilot monitoring opens the procedure and perform the procedure from the QRH. If the reset or relight was successful, then the status will disappear, so ECAM's actions are completed. But if not, or if they are not applicable, then the pilot flying orders continue ECAM. Pilot monitoring reads status like a book, no actions done at that point from the status. When the status is done, requests remove status, pilot flying confirms remove status, and pilot monitoring announce ECAM actions completed. With ECAM actions complete, communication go back to pilot monitoring. Status. Status may have some limitations, procedures, or information. It's important for you when you are dealing with the ECAM actions. So when you come to the status and when you read status for the first time during the ECAM actions, you do not perform anything from this. You just continue reading all the status page, and when ECAM actions are completed, then you will, during the approach preparation or before refer to the QRH or perform this procedure. What about the QRH procedures? If you don't have anything on the ECAM, or if this QRH procedure is applicable at that point of time, then you will call for QRH procedure. It's the same thing. OAB, consider OAB if you have any OAB or no OAB, and then you call for this procedure. It's the same as in ECAM actions. The communication goes to pilot flying until pilot monitoring announce procedure completed. Then the communication goes back to pilot monitoring. So that's all. Thank you for your attention. I hope you enjoyed. Bye bye.